are listening to Beyond the Surface with Faith Davis, a commitment to authenticity and the truths we inherently share. In this episode, we will be discussing ageism throughout the Black community and the truth about wisdom.
So, the one thing I have to speak on is ageism. Because if there's one thing that always comes up in conversation, it's age. I feel like we as a people are so hung up on how old someone is. We just assume that with age comes wisdom, and we want to learn from these people, and it's not coming from a bad place, because we want to avoid any suffering for ourselves or learn something that can aid us on our own personal journeys. But I feel like the issue comes with the roles that come with certain ages. And I believe that kids or young adults in general are an oppressed class, because I feel like adults don't protect them and they invalidate their emotions. My understanding of adulthood was freedom, and adults were the gatekeepers and, in my opinion, the gods of a realm that I felt like, okay, when I grow up, I'm gonna have access to this. Like, it'll be my turn soon. And I wholeheartedly believed that the adults that I was around, or in general, just had all the answers. And I believe that people who were older than me would know more than me. So when I became a young adult in high school, it was hard to realize that was not the case. Because I was a parentified child, I had a hyper focus on adults. Paying attention to everything that they did determined my personal safety, so I always made sure I paid attention. Like, that attention to detail and my skills on my resume, it's in bold, okay? I pay attention. But what I found was that if a person doesn't actively grow and change, they remain stagnant. And it didn't really matter how old that person was. The people who were my age could understand basic concepts, and the people who were deemed more knowledgeable could barely understand. And then on the flip side of that, immature actions and mindsets were not only reserved for the youngins. Someone like my stepdad, who was a 52-year-old man, could easily have tantrums like he was 2 if he didn't get his way. So this all, it threw my mind for a loop, because the safety I imagined was gone. I realized I was in a world, my fault, where you needed to try to become anything better than your baseline. And I guess as a child, I thought that we just grew. And in some ways, obviously we do, because our physical bodies grow. But the issue is the correlation with the two, like believing that your mental progression as an individual is correlated with your growth, just as you are growing naturally. And I feel like the systems of understanding really hurt the Black community, especially because we are so focused on rules and regulations. And I feel like a word thrown around a lot is wisdom. People think being wise is something that comes to you with experience. And yes, it partially does. But the issue is that people have a habit of telling other people, do as I say, not as I do, when true wisdom is the understanding of knowledge that leads to implementing what you know. Like, I'll say this, not everyone is charming and has a way with words, and to be wise definitely has layers, and empathy exists on a spectrum, and everyone is at a different level, and it's up to you to decide where you want to get your wisdom from. But I will say that statement, it's null and void, because you can't be wise and not do as you say. It negates the whole entire statement. And I feel like this pattern trickles down in the Black community often, because people in my community who have power and have been socialized to keep their mouths shut for millions of reasons. I understand that, because I was abused by my family for so long, and it definitely rewires your brain. It debilitates you, with fear and anxiety. I hope you guys have seen Inside Out, not sponsored or anything like that, but that movie is really good and is a really good depiction of how your emotions can really just debilitate you. But I feel like we as a people have to speak on those issues that plague us, and we can't be so dense to only listen to people who have seemingly earned the right to have a voice. especially when that voice isn't from someone who speaks for problems that we all face and is only specified for only like an older generation. Because I feel like we don't hold our elders to a standard of constant learning. It's like the life that they lived was good enough and they no longer need any new information. And they speak for our families and tell us younger people that we just need to shut up because we're being too emotional. But then we'll literally rant about how terrible their upbringing was and how they suffered. But I noticed that they have a habit of wanting people to suffer as like a rite of passage or something. Like they want you to validate their emotions as to why they're so evil and cranky and refuse to change, but will invalidate similar issues you face because they never got the attention they needed when it was needed. And like, you see what I mean? How that could just, it's like, how do you want me to be there for you, but you can't be there for me? And you tell me I'm whining, but you don't want, you know? And I just feel like it's unfair to keep that cycle of us never being heard or addressing the root issue until it all bleeds out. Because of all this intersectionality, it's just deeply rooted. And I understand how we've been systematically held back for so long. I have to make that clear because I don't just be wanting to hurt anybody's feelings and be like, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, I understand all of the elements that come with it. But I know that something that we experience a lot is that we exude is being defensive. Like, no one can say anything to us. And I know it because I'm defensive too. And I'll never come for you without saying that the call is coming from inside the house. But in our defensiveness, I believe more of us need that moment of reflection so we can take our guards down to ourselves as well. We need to see that people are mirrors, especially our own race of people. It gets more personal with sex and everything else. But if I grow up and see a shell of a woman who has never had her own voice, been beaten her entire life, and never speaks on it, what am I supposed to believe about my own reality? Then to see even more black women and people co-sign the behavior that is just gonna stun us all, like, what am I supposed to be thinking? And I hate it because I want my people to find their voices. I want us to be wise in the real way and stop trying to find meaning in things that don't matter. The church title doesn't matter. Your relationship with people does. You upholding the patriarchy, never telling anybody what that man did to you, does not help anybody. You telling your grandchildren to follow in your footsteps, knowing that you've been suffering, is wrong. You don't get to treat younger people worse than you because you feel like you're better. And young people should not be treating you like an inconvenience. But at some people, y'all gotta take responsibility, I feel like, for the war on age. Because it's like, we're looking to y'all. Y'all are the people that come before us. And then y'all make the same excuses. And it's like, okay, we can understand that. But what are we gonna do moving forward? Like, what is next? And it's like, we learn from y'all, and then y'all treat us like we asked to be alive. Y'all make us feel bad for expressing the emotions that we're feeling. And it's like, I hate that the ageism conversation always becomes like a young against old, but it's like, y'all come before us and then make us feel like we're responsible for y'all. And it's literally like, y'all parentify us as a society. It's like, damn, now it's our fault. Now we're lazy. Now this, now that. But what about y'all? And, you know, we could all point the finger. And I feel like my generation, for sure, is taking a lot of responsibility for their actions and parenting and all those things. And I really applaud my generation for that, because we really need to heal as a people. And somebody got to start doing something. But I feel like a lot of us don't have a good relationship with age. So it doesn't help us as a people in general. Because a lot of people who get older, then they hate us in our youth because they realize that, or they didn't realize that they would age. So instead of embracing it, everybody's doing something to make sure they don't look as aged. So then us young people have a warped mindset when it comes to age because people aren't making it look desirable. And then, you know, to make matters worse, the media they're already just pushing a bunch of anti-aging products on you, making you feel worse. And it's even more, I feel like, rampant now because of phones and just everything that can be in your face. And it's like, me personally, I know that the media is a game. Media literacy is like one of the first classes you take as a communications major, just like it's like a baseline class. And the information that they tell you, it's like basically it just gives you the key to the matrix. It's like, yeah, your eyes are, dollar signs, your attention, they're just letting you know all these things. So it's like the issue is people refuse to learn all of this type of stuff. So we don't really have a conscious, I would say, in my personal opinion, excuse me, a really conscious group of older people making these things known. So we have a lot more people who are flooded with insecurity making these decisions. And I know that we have some people on TikTok, and I'm not trying to disregard those people because there's a lot of older people on social media platforms that are really like shelling out amazing and legitimate educational information. And that stuff wasn't around when I was growing up, but it's around now. And I think a lot of people forget about that because they forget even, that Google's a thing. Like, I know there's some people who are like, anxious like me, and it's like, dang, I gotta Google every little thing. But there's some people out here that like won't use Google Maps. They won't search things up. It's like they feel, I guess, like they are better because they're just trying to use their brain, even though humans use tools and there's nothing wrong with using tools. But, I'm saying all this to say that I believe that ageism is an illusion with real effects, though, because people are educated enough to understand the mental, like, capitalistic game that's at play, and it's raging especially in the Black community because Black elders are way less likely to even hear, let alone take educational information from someone younger without a rude bias. So, it's like that's a topic within itself because from my own personal experience, I had relationships with older women of different races and tried to speak with them, and most of the time they have this cadence that is like they know more than you, even if they may not, but they don't, it's like an ego thing. And then it just, I feel like, becomes an issue of like they don't want to implement the advice because then that would mean that they were wrong. Like, I guess that coincides with ego too. But, all I know is that we've all worked places and we've had coworkers that were different ages than us, higher and lower, and we've loved them, like we've been able to get along. Like, that's even a loaded statement there because I know that like a lot of older women are bullies in the office, in the workplace. But like I also made some friends. So like it's hard and it's you're not going to be friends with everyone or cool with everyone, but it's just the fact that we need to, as people, come up with a better way to accept that we are all aging and come to better terms with it, because I think that if people felt better about it, they wouldn't be projecting and exuding all of this, nastiness. So yeah, and I think we just need to be compassionate towards each other because we have to let that version of ourselves that has experienced good things with older people be our guide when we're interacting with other older people, and be willing to let our guard down and hope that they are willing to put their guard down as well, because that's definitely something that is shared. We all can say that we have shared disappointment. We know what disappointment feels like. when we're trying to connect with someone, no matter how old they are. So let's just come together, y'all. The next episode is going to be about therapy. I will see you on the next episode.